3BC.
Hey y'all, it's your girl Joy, the hostess with Mostest. You're listening to 3BC, and my 3BCs are back with us today. One solo, KC the Alchemist, and Chloe. And we also have a special guest today, Lila Hood, also Lila Blue Violin, who is really doing her thing in LA. She's a Memphis girl. Woo woo.
Woo, woo. Hey,
Woo woo.
everybody.
I guess it should be ooh, ooh.
Yeah.
Memphis girl.
Right.
Ooh,
Ooh.
ooh. Uh, but she's a Memphis girl, not and I, for one, speaking personally, am really proud of this lady. She
Oh,
picked up the.
Joy.
I'm super proud of you, girl, and we want to talk about her music, her career, her trajectory, her work with kids. We are celebrating Black Music Month, so this is for the culture with Lila Hood, Lila Blue Violin. Welcome, girl.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm doing fine. Everyone's just trying to keep it together. I think
Sure.
with the events that happened this week on top of, the stay-at-home orders, it's been a lot.
It's a lot. We were
It's
all
a
kind of
lot.
dealing with it. So,
Yeah.
ladies, any questions for Leela?
I want to know, how did you get started playing the violin?
Oh,
I have a daughter. She plays the cello, not professionally, but she is very skilled in playing the cello. My three younger children were introduced to the violin and the cello in elementary school. They had to take
mm,
an orchestra class. Unfortunately, the two younger ones did not continue with the violin, but Dakota loves playing the cello.
does
So
she?
she really does, and she's good. So was your introduction something like that, or
My introduction was a little different, and I think it kind of fuels the way I operate now. Like even with my program, my teaching program, and the kids, I saw some kids playing. I saw some kids from Memphis State
Mm.
University playing Suzuki violin. And that's one of the Suzuki things is they play in the community. You might see these kids at a festival or just in the park, just kind of free concerts out practicing repertoire. And I just kind of got stuck. And I was already playing piano. Probably haven't been playing piano that long, but I was already kind of stuck or struck when I saw these kids. And it just turned into, I want to do that. I
How
want
old
to
were
do that.
you? How were you?
Please, can I do that? Five.
Wow.
Wow.
So I was playing piano and violin at a very young age. And I played those. I still play both of those to this day.
so do
But
you come
just
from a musical family?
you could say that, but you could also not say that. So,
All right.
if you're from Memphis and you were raised anytime before, if you kind of hit your childhood before 85, I would say, it was probably a social norm to take piano.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Yes.
know,
Right.
like, I have older sisters who were born much, earlier than I was, and it was really a social norm. Like in the late
Yeah.
60s, most Black families, no matter what their economic situation, there were certain things that we did in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm finding, like, I meet so many people that took piano when they were younger, and now it's something that can be priced out of a whole community. Like you could not be able to afford these things, but there were Black instructors who were teaching lessons for like $5 a lesson.
Mm-hmm.
I went for
Um,
3
you know what I'm saying?
a
You
lesson.
see, so
hmm
it
I
was it
took
was like something
piano.
that was valued and it was important, but it wasn't too expensive for you not to do it.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's
I
kind
took
of
piano too, Lee, across the
yeah.
street from Miss Gunter.
Okay,
And
yeah.
yeah, you know Miss Gunter too? Did you know her?
No, I don't know Miss Gunter, but I'm just saying, like, that's
Okay.
how it was. You would go across the
Mhm.
street, you would go
Mm-hmm.
around the corner.
Mhm.
Somebody was teaching you.
Yeah, my social studies teacher was my second piano teacher.
See,
I found out she was over the choir at the elementary school. So I said, "Do
yeah.
you teach piano lessons?" Because unfortunately, my piano teacher at the time had gotten dementia, but that's another story.
Oh
But she really did, Joy. But anyway,
Oh my
um,
god.
but I started going to Miss Williams. That's when I was $5 then. But you're
Mm-hmm.
right. It was somebody in the community. You may go to their house.
Right.
They may have it in the back room, in the
In the
living
back
room.
room,
They
I was
do
in the
have it in
front
the back
room.
room.
I was in
Mm-hmm.
the front room, the way her house was set up. So it was like a mystery as to
Mm-hmm.
what the rest of the house
It looked
really
like.
was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
See,
Mhm.
that was Miss Williams' house. That
Mm-hmm.
was in the
Mhm.
very front room, but Miss Foot was in the very back room. But
Yeah.
I had a question for you.
Okay.
And you were mentioning your foundation, which is the Blue Violin Foundation. Tell us
Yes.
more about your foundation and what you offer to children in the community.
Okay. I kind of just reached a breaking point at some point in my classical career. Like, why am I the only person that looks like me in this whole? Like every time I was looking around, it was just me, or maybe me and one other person. And I just felt like, we as a culture, we're just a talented people. And it's not
Yes.
the reason I wasn't seeing us in the symphonic environment or classical arenas. It wasn't because we couldn't do it. It was just because we hadn't been exposed to that.
Right.
So I personally kind of hit a wall and decided that I was going to take on this task. Like I was just going to teach the world. And one day we were going to see people of color in all the symphonies in the world, but it didn't quite happen that way. However, I have exposed a lot of kids to music. Some of them stuck with it. Some of them have become like one of my students has his master's in music now, and that's a little boy who didn't have arts in his community. When I came back to Memphis in the early 2000s, I set up in Whitehaven, and this was
Mm-hmm.
one of my first kids who I just feel like if he hadn't come in my program, I just don't know what his trajectory would have been. But this boy has been all over the world singing. He's an amazing tenor. He
Wow.
started out with me on piano and voice, but he's amazing right now. And I have several kids like that that really took to it. So it kind
Mm-hmm.
of keeps you going with these programs. And it just became my life's work. Like my mission is to diversify
Right. And
music, you
and I can
know.
imagine you're keeping a lot of kids out of trouble. Speaking as a music student myself, it kept me busy. When you
Yeah,
play an instrument and if you're a part of any kind of organization, no matter how big or small, band, whatever, it keeps you busy because you
right.
You
have to
have to
spend time
practice.
practicing. You may practice with a group, you have
Hmm.
events. So I salute you for that because I'm sure it's keeping a lot of children out of trouble. As you mentioned, you didn't know what this child's traje- trajectory tongue tied
Yeah.
today would be, but thanks to your program, it's giving kids an option to stay out of trouble.
Yeah. And
So I
keeping them
salute that.
busy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So
Of
how
course,
many?
go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you finish.
No, I was just saying that over, 20, 25 years of doing this, the kids have changed, the environment has changed, so now I compete with things like screen time
Mm.
and,
Right.
you
Yes.
know, their level of attention has completely altered. Kids in 2020 are very different from kids in 2003
Oh
or
yes.
four
Right.
that didn't have smartphones or things like that,
Mhm.
so it's a constant push, but
Yes.
I enjoyed the challenge.
And my attention span was short then, and I kind of
Yeah.
wish they taught how they teach now would
Uh-huh.
be how they would have taught then, where, back then you practice an hour straight or you do
Yeah.
everything
Mhm.
continuously,
Yes.
where now you may take breaks in between.
Yeah.
And I may have done much better,
If you had
actually,
had a little
if I
break.
had the breaks in
Yeah.
between.
Yeah.
So, is that how you teach children now? What's your method of teaching now?
Well, each one of them, for the most part, they have private lessons with me once a week. And then I set my expectations for the week. So they have to practice. And I try to break it down for them. Like if you're 7, you need to practice your song 7 times a day. And
Mm.
that works
Gotcha.
really well for them.
Hmm.
Because then they, when they turn, like one little girl turned 9 yesterday, and her mom was like, she was stressed out about having
Having to do it 9 times now.
having to do 9 times now. She said, girl, that's all she was talking about is she got to practice 9 times, and so many times. Like, and I said, well, at least they know, So
Right.
I try to, be realistic. Parents are busy. I live in LA. People are in their cars more than they are really at home. So I just,
The traffic is so real.
it's so real.
So
I
real.
Yes.
mean, it's
Lord
so
Jesus.
real.
Well,
So
I
well,
admire
well. Your next
anybody that drives
strategy is
that.
like on iPad in traffic,
yes,
Zoom
yeah.
lessons.
We've gone there.
We
We have
gotta.
gone there. Yeah, I have one kid that has a roll-up piano. So
Mhm.
Oh wow.
Oh yeah.
they get their practice in traffic. Like
Oh, cool.
in the back
That's
seat.
dedication too. That's
Yeah.
dedication. I love it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And you're doing voice too?
No, not anymore. I used to when I was in Memphis, I would do like I had a lot of children's choirs. I used to do youth choirs, and I think I'm kind of hype. I'm fun as a teacher, and I used to have a lot of young kids with youth choirs that like to move and dance, and I could figure out the music that they wanted to sing. I was raised in like a missionary Baptist church that didn't do a whole lot of rocking and swaying,
Yeah, of course.
so
We
so
don't.
Mine
so
did, but that's
yeah.
y'all.
I was like, mine did. I was like,
I did
oh,
not.
Right,
baby, we
mine
came
didn't.
marching in every youth
I
day.
know. I
But
was gonna
We had to
say
get to
we did. We
practice.
were the
but
marching
see,
in church, so
yeah,
No,
youth day was the
absolutely
one
not.
day. Youth day was the one day that they
Not
would let
even.
them like go hard, So I used to get contracted to do a lot of that type of work. But yeah, no. For now, I'm just teaching all strings: piano, violin, viola, all the orchestral
hmm
instruments.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, what made you move from Memphis to LA? You
Oh,
came home late roots, but what made you move to LA? And do you feel like LA suits you better, at least for this period in your life and for what you're doing right now?
I love home. I do
Sure.
love
That
where
doesn't
I'm
mean you can
from.
live here.
But that doesn't mean that to make the type of advancements I was trying to make with my career, I really needed to be in a city that had industry,
Yes.
hmm
for
Yep.
music. And I love Memphis. Like I came back to Memphis on purpose. Like I meant to be there. But I found that even in being there, like I was on the music commission board. I was very active in the community. I was on several boards, but I could not get certain moves made there. I was going to city council. I was doing
Hmm.
presentations in front of the council, vying for space, like empty buildings all up and down Elvis Presley, begging certain families that own all of those buildings, having meetings with them. Can I
Hmm.
use this? Trying to erect a performing arts center. Um, and it just became a lot. And I think
Yeah.
I had to just take a step back and just kind of look at. I was going in a circle with my performances. There's only so many venues. Again, I
Sure.
love my city,
Mhm.
Sure.
but for the type of music that I do, there aren't a whole lot of venues for jazz and
Hmm.
instrumental, just
Right.
kind of eclectic type of playing.
Yeah.
And I was doing, events in LA. Anytime I would come here, on the day that I was leaving, people were always trying to get me to do stuff the next week. And it just seemed like no matter when I came here, there was always a pull for work. So I spent a whole summer here, 2014. Like, let me just be here the whole summer and see what it's like. And I brought my son and we just did it. And I was working. I had a casting agent at the time already. And she was already like, you really don't want to do this, because I'm going to get a gig and you're going to have to be in LA the next day or something. I said, well, let me just see how the gigs come in. Let me see what work is really, out there. So I went back to Memphis my final year and I was teaching, and I got a call
You were
for,
at Hutchinson, right?
I was
You
at
still at
Hutchinson.
Hutchinson? I
Yeah,
remember.
I started an orchestra program there. And
Hmm.
I got a call to be in a video for Sting. And he was booking like 36 violinists. And it was the next day, like she
Wow.
said. And there was no way I'm talking to you at 10 o'clock Memphis time.
Mhm.
And I
That you
could be
could
on
be
Yeah.
a
there.
set at 6, 7, 8 o'clock the next day. And that
Oh
was kind of
man.
like, I love Sting, by the way. So that was kind of like
Yes.
one of the catalysts that I'm not trying to miss that again.
Did you throw
And
up after that? I
yeah,
think
I
I
was
would
real.
have just
I just
vomited. Like,
Yeah, and you
Just
good. You better than me because I'd have
vomit.
called all my friends. Been like, okay, I got friends at Delta America who got buddy passes. Like, how fast can I get there?
I couldn't even
But
figure
at
it out.
10, you're not going to get there.
Right,
Not
at
at
10
10
you're not gonna
p.m.
get there.
Not
Not at 10 p.m.
until.
And so it was that, and then I did Fashion Week that March before I moved, and Fashion Week was just like, it just went bananas. Do you remember that song? This is going to tell you how long ago that was. It was 5 years. This is my 5-year anniversary. The cocaine song, the Coco. I'm in love with the Coco.
Yes.
So
Mhm.
I was, they had me opening this Fashion Week, and they were like, but you got to play I Love the Coco. And I was like, I got kids. I'm not trying to play
You
this Coco.
Southern, you do
You know-
respectability.
you know-
Like, he love the Lord.
Right. But I had to play it. I had to play, and I played it. It was like the last song I played. You would not believe the amount of
Yes.
just absolute drenching of, can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do it? Can you play it this? I mean, it was ridiculous. And so between that and Sting, that happened like within the same month. And I was kind of like, it's time. My son was old enough. I was always worried about that, being a single mom,
Yeah.
bringing him to LA into a gig economy that was going to be pulling me out of the house. But it was cool. We came in 8th grade, and it was like from the time we hit the ground here, things that I was clawing the walls to get done in Memphis were just being given to. I mean, it was like, I met this guy in Kinko's, and he saw me copying music, and he started talking to me, and he was on this committee with the city. But he just said, like, he saw me copying music. Next thing you know, I'm on this committee, Make Music LA. I'm playing all over the place. We're playing at City Hall. Like, the things I used to do in Memphis were happening in 1 year. Like that I had been, it took me like 15 years to do in Memphis. And it was just
And
like
young
all of a
people,
sudden.
let me make a note. Young people, Kinko's is FedEx office. If you're
Right,
listening.
because they don't know. Yeah, you're
Did
right.
I say Kinko's?
If any of you, we
It
all
does
say
say
Kinko's.
but I think it does say Kinko's FedEx. I think it does say both, doesn't it?
It does.
I don't know,
yeah.
but we call it Kinko's. I'm just
Yeah,
making
we
a
call
note.
But we still call it
Just in case.
Kinko's. It's gonna be
Just in
Kinko's
case.
forever.
Joyce said young people.
Just in
you're
case
right.
they're listening.
And by young,
It's
we just
really-
mean 35.
Right. That's all we mean.
Right.
That's all we mean.
Right.
But it just,
Because our thing is for 40
opportunities.
up.
Yeah. But opportunities were just like, the amount of work I couldn't even make up. Like, I would have never thought that there would be jobs for me to pretend play a saxophone for a National Ford commercial. And I'm a violinist,
Mm-hmm.
and people, I mean, like thousands of dollars to just pretend to be who I was. When I was having trouble getting traction being exactly who I was in Memphis.
Right.
But coming here, it was just like, just opportunities. It's an industry, it's a city that's full of the industry I'm in. So I was doing, playing in orchestras for major artists, doing a national commercial with Common, standing right there and having a whole conversation with him about all the people we know, in Chicago. So, it was just things that I wouldn't have had access to, back home that I was able to do here. And it kind of, every time I do an event, I'm just like, okay, we were supposed to be here. Even my son, the opportunities that he's had in an orchestra class. And I know, again, I love my city, but I know all the teachers at home. So I kind of could have predicted what his experience was going to be at certain schools. If he had been in the orchestra program, he may not have been allowed to do as much as he was allowed to do here. He conducted the advanced orchestra in a program in 9th grade.
Wow.
That's something that at my former high school, you have to be in 12th grade to even be considered to do that. And typically it's one person.
Right.
Who doesn't
That's
look like
amazing.
us.
It is amazing.
That's amazing.
It kind of leads me to a quote I saw on the website for Passioneers, where you said, it wasn't until I put myself all in to my career that everything I had dreamed of began to happen. And that's pretty much what you're saying right now, that
That's a great quote.
you have to go all in.
You have to. Like when I moved here in 2015, I felt like I should have come in 2010 because I had a lot of stress between 2010 and 2015 in Memphis. I was trying to do so many things, representing myself, and it's just a lot. If the industry isn't there, and Memphis has, as far as I'm concerned, the best talent in the country.
So we really do.
You look at LA, the top musicians who are playing, the band that plays behind the Jacksons on tour are from Memphis. The band
Jay-Z's people are from Memphis.
Like the Memphis musicians.
Cameron Whalen is from Memphis, and he plays with Bruno Mars.
Yeah, here. Like, it's unbelievable. So
you have to go where the creativity is flowing, though.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a different mindset in California than there is in the South, period. In the South, you have to fill these squares. You grow up, you get a job, you provide for a family.
Correct.
And there are specific ways to do that. Whereas when you go somewhere that's filled with creative people that are given the room to express that creativity,
right,
it nurtures and encourages that.
Right. I would say the South is behind in coming along, but definitely behind, especially like here in Nashville. I mean, even some of the venues we haven't always been there or been open, like for classical music or opera or things like that. That's only been a recent thing, even here. And we're supposed to be the music city. So I would imagine you may have to move to have more creativity and be able to have more options.
Right.
There's no shortage of talent. It's just, I think there's a shortage of vision for the talent.
I was thinking the same thing. True visionaries. We don't have them.
Yeah.
And I felt
for developing the talent.
Yeah, I felt like I had vision, but I didn't know the level of vision. You know what I mean? Like my vision was about right here. It was like, what's the place I used to play? Why is it this on Main Street, girl?
Which one? Precious Cargo?
No, I played there. Yeah,
that's not Main Street. Yeah.
Down on next to the Civil Rights Museum.
I could see it, but I can't think of the name of it.
Onyx?
And I could see it in my head. Not
Onyx.
The
Onyx
place everybody used to play though. But you know what I'm talking about. Right there next to the fire station. But anyway.
It's called something else now.
Yeah. But
Soul Cafe.
Is that
Cafe
what it is?
Soul.
Cafe
one of
Soul
the two.
Yeah, something like that.
There's two of them. One of them was Soul Cafe and the other one's Cafe Soul.
Yeah, so my vision was pretty much Cafe Soul, Precious Cargo, banquets and corporate events, playing in the background in the corner. That was my circuit when I was in Memphis. And then coming here, it was like everything was coming in the front. I'm getting headline slots for jazz festivals. I'm like doing New Year's Eve huge events like on the beach on the Central Coast, things that I would not have. And even the auditions, all the auditions I take, I don't get. But just knowing that there are jobs for being a violin hamster for Kia, for the Kia car. Like they were auditioning a violin hamster. I ran into a lot of height issues with auditions. You have to be a certain height for most of the commercials, depending on whatever they set it for. So
I have a cousin that has that issue there now because she's super short.
Right. That Kia hamster violin was like 5'5", and my agent was like, "Go anyway." She was like, "Go anyway," and they got a mark on the wall so they can see if you're not under, or above the height. So it's interesting.
This is something you never consider.
Things you don't know
at all. Yeah, you don't know till you know.
Yeah, and I didn't know what slating was, so now I teach my students how to slate because they get auditions. Like I'm booking my students for music videos, and we did a music video with PJ where she had 10 of my girls playing violin, and they were rocking. I gave them some choreo, so we
people. That's PJ Morton. Young people, if you listen, PJ is PJ Morton. Okay.
I love PJ.
Just educating the youngsters in the event that they're listening.
Okay. I don't know if that's PJ Morton is a guy, right?
PJ Morton, yeah.
Okay, we're talking about PJ. This is a new. You're probably. She's
Oh,
probably
the young
are you
people
talking
might
about
know
somebody young and
PJ.
we're
Yeah.
being old?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Okay, I
being
was like-
oh, my bad.
We're being
No.
old.
She goes by PJ, and on Instagram it's at PEEJ, but she goes by
Oh,
PJ.
so
Just
young
the-
people, my
Oh,
bad. Y'all might know more
Yeah.
than me.
Okay.
Old people. Joy was talking about PJ Morton.
Okay.
Yeah,
Young
getting
people know who
everywhere.
she was talking about.
Okay.
Just keep going. Keep going, me.
But you know,
But they got paid like $100 each. So if you're
That's
7,
great.
8,
That's
you know
a
what I'm
lot.
saying? Like,
Yeah.
That's a lot.
and it was a really big deal. They had makeup artists for them. It was exactly how like when I go to a set. So they were getting made up, and
Yeah.
their hair was, they wanted natural hairstyles. So the lady did all kinds of different styles with all their hair, and
I love it.
you know, it was a really cool experience. So like little things like that, like I want to be able to give that to my home city, but I feel like I had to come and learn what else was available, you know, what else is out there for
Yeah.
me.
Yes.
What advice would you give a young aspiring musician or strings musician? What advice would you give?
I would start with first of all, decide who you are, even though you're always going to be evolving as an artist. Because social media exists, your message or your brand that represents you, that's going to get to people before you can even open your mouth, like that's very important. And for young people, you're still in a position where you're growing and you're changing. So I feel like young artists have to be careful about how they're posting and what they're posting, because it doesn't go anywhere. One of the advantages that we have is we didn't have social media when we were, you know, their ages. You know, maybe some things didn't get caught of how we were behaving or acting, you know, for whatever reason. But I think your brand is what I've learned living here. Branding is way up here. It's who you are. It's what reaches people before you get there. That's how it was explained to me.
And that's correct. As a PR gal, I have had this conversation so many times, and I have had it with the kids. So they asked me, I just did something with Saks a few months ago, and they all want to know about social media. And I had to really talk to them about branding social media, but also just reining it in, you know, and really being mindful of what you post and what you say.
Exactly.
But we're going to have to wrap, Lee. Thank you so much. Or Lila. Sorry, Lila.
Yes.
Lila, thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing that with us too. And if you guys want to follow Lila, it's at the Blue Violin Official on Instagram. So follow her on Instagram. And again, thank you. There's some takeaways. I made notes. I wanted to make sure if there's anything anybody should take away is go where the creativity flows and where it leads you.
Where it leads you. And no one else can tell you that.
No one else can go all
I need
in.
you to understand, I didn't come here without resistance.
Correct.
There were a lot of people saying you couldn't, you couldn't, you know.
But you did.
Yeah.
But you did, and that's what's important.
Yeah.
And the other two things, go all in and bet on yourself, and the doors will open for you. So this has been 3BC, the For the Culture edition with Lila Hood, the Blue Violin, Lila Blue Violin, and with Chloe, One Solo, and KC the Alchemist. And I am your girl, Joy. Thanks for listening. Thanks for coming.
3BC, recorded at Kudzukian Studios, directed, produced, and distributed by Kudzukian.
Join the conversation at facebook.com/3BC.